Danny Pierce pressed his face against the cold glass of the observation deck and stared at the massive ship floating in the darkness. It had been there for as long as anyone could remember, silent and still like a sleeping giant. The ship was huge, bigger than 10 city blocks put together, and its surface looked like it was made of crystal that caught the light from distant stars. Everyone called them dragons. There were hundreds of them scattered across this part of space, all abandoned and dark. Scientists said an alien race called the Drail had built them, but the Drail had disappeared 60 years ago without any explanation. The ships just floated there in orbit around dead planets, doing nothing, saying nothing. Danny came to the observation deck every night after his classes ended. The other orphans thought he was strange for spending so much time staring at the alien ship, but Danny didn't care. Down in the lower levels of Haven Station, life was gray and boring. Everyone told him what to do, where to go, what to learn. But up here, looking at the dragon ship, he could dream about something more. The station's lights dimmed automatically as the night cycle began. Danny could see his reflection in the glass now. A skinny 12-year-old boy with messy brown hair and tired eyes. He looked like every other orphan on the station, wearing the same gray uniform, eating the same bland food, learning to fix pipes and wires so he could spend his whole life keeping this metal box running. "You again?" a voice said behind him. Danny turned to see Ben Graham walking across the empty deck. Ben was one of the station administrators, a tall man with kind eyes who actually remembered the orphans' names. Most adults on Haven Station treated the children like machines that needed programming, but Ben was different. "Sorry, sir," Danny said. "I'll go back to the dorms." "I didn't say you had to leave," Ben replied, walking over to stand beside him. He looked out at the dragon ship and shook his head slowly. "The Sleeper's Crown. That's what they named it when we first arrived here. Beautiful, isn't it?" Danny nodded. "Do you think they're really dead? The aliens inside?" Ben was quiet for a moment. "The scans say there's no life signs. No power signatures beyond some background energy that keeps the hull intact. But honestly, nobody really knows. The Drail left behind no messages, no clues about where they went or why." He glanced at Danny. "Why do you come here every night?" Danny shrugged. He didn't know how to explain it. "It makes me feel less alone, I guess. Like maybe someone out there understands." Ben's expression changed, becoming sad. "Your parents were good people, Danny. I knew them before the disaster. Your father was one of the best engineers on New Terra." Danny felt the familiar ache in his chest. 2 years had passed since the mining accident that killed 3,000 people, including his mom and dad. The tectonic drill had malfunctioned, causing earthquakes that swallowed half the mining colony. Danny had been visiting his aunt on Haven Station when it happened. Now his aunt was gone too, died from a disease 6 months ago, and Danny was truly alone. "I should get back," Danny said quietly. "Wait." Ben reached into his pocket and pulled out a small data pad. "I wasn't supposed to give you this until tomorrow, but I think you should have it now. Your father left this with me before he went down to the surface for his last shift. He said to give it to you when you turned 12. Danny took the pad with shaking hands. His birthday had been last week. Nobody had remembered except for one of the other orphans who gave him an extra dessert ration. He pressed his thumb to the screen and his father's face appeared, smiling at him. "Hey, kiddo," his father's recorded voice said. "If you're watching this, it means I'm not there with you, and I'm so sorry about that. I want you to know that your mother and I loved you more than anything in the universe. We came to New Terra to build a better future for you, even though it meant taking risks." His father paused, and his expression became serious. "I need to tell you something important. You're special, Danny. When you were born, something happened. The doctors couldn't explain it, but your brain patterns matched a frequency they'd only seen in one other place. The dragon ships. They said it was impossible, just a coincidence, but your mother and I always wondered. If something happens to us, if you ever feel drawn to those ships, don't ignore it. Listen to that feeling. Maybe you're meant for something bigger than any of us understand." The message ended. Danny stood frozen, staring at the blank screen. Ben put a hand on his shoulder. "Your father told me a little about this," Ben said. "He made me promise to watch out for you, to make sure you got that message. I don't know what it means, but I trust your father's judgment." Danny looked back at the dragon ship. The Sleeper's Crown hung there against the stars, vast and mysterious. Something inside him stirred, like a feeling he'd had his whole life but never understood. He'd always felt different from other kids, Always felt like he was waiting for something without knowing what. "Can I stay a little longer?" Danny asked. Ben nodded. "Just make sure you get to bed before the morning cycle. You have technical training at 7. After Ben left, Danny moved closer to the window. He placed his hand flat against the glass and stared at the dragon ship. Without really thinking about it, he started talking. "I don't know if anyone can hear me," he said quietly. "My dad said I might be connected to you somehow. I don't understand it, but I feel something when I look at you. Like you're waiting. Like you're sleeping, but you might wake up." The ship remained dark and silent. Danny felt foolish talking to an empty alien vessel, but something pushed him to continue. "I'm alone now. My parents are gone. I don't have any family left. Everyone here treats me like I'm just another worker they have to train. But maybe, if you're in there somewhere, maybe you understand what it's like to be forgotten." He paused, his throat tight. "I lost everyone I loved. Did you lose people too? Is that why you went to sleep?" The stars moved slowly behind the dragon ship as the station continued its orbit. Danny stood there for over an hour, sometimes talking, sometimes just watching. He told the ship about his parents, about the mining disaster, about his dreams of seeing other worlds and having adventures like the heroes in the old stories. He didn't notice the tiny flicker of light deep inside the crystal structure of the crown. He didn't see the faint pulse of energy that ran through the ship's core for the first time in 63 years. He didn't know that far below, in the depths of the alien vessel, something ancient had stirred in response to his voice. Danny finally headed back to the dorms, exhausted but somehow feeling better than he had in months. He fell asleep quickly, and for the first time in 2 years, he dreamed of flying through stars and hearing voices that sang in languages he'd never learned, but somehow understood. Aboard the sleeper's crown, dormant systems began their slow awakening. The boy's voice had reached through the darkness like a light in an endless night. After decades of silence, the dragons were beginning to hear again, and they were listening. 3 weeks passed, and strange things started happening around Danny Pierce. At first, nobody noticed. A light would flicker when he walked down a corridor. A computer screen would glitch for a second when he sat down for his lessons. Small things that could be blamed on the station's aging equipment. But then the incidents became harder to ignore. Danny was in technical training class when the first major event happened. His instructor, a stern woman named Helen Carter, who also ran the entire station, was showing the orphans how to repair a power relay. Danny reached out to touch the device, and every light in the room exploded in a shower of sparks. 20 students jumped back in fear as electricity arced across the ceiling. Helen stared at Danny with cold eyes. "What did you do?" "Nothing," Danny said, his voice shaking. "I just touched it. Obviously you did something wrong." Helen turned to the other students. "This is what happens when you don't follow proper safety procedures. Everyone out except Pierce. You'll stay and clean up this mess." The other orphans filed out quickly, some of them giving Danny suspicious looks. He spent the next hour sweeping up broken glass and burnt metal, his hands trembling the whole time. He hadn't done anything wrong. He'd followed every step exactly as Helen had shown them, but somehow the equipment had overloaded the moment he made contact. That night, Danny's roommate, a boy named Joey, shook him awake. "Dude, you're doing it again," Joey said, pointing at the wall. Danny sat up and gasped. The wall beside his bed was glowing with faint blue symbols that seemed to pulse with their own light. They looked like letters, but not from any alphabet Danny recognized. As soon as he fully woke up, the symbols faded and disappeared. "What was that?" Joey asked, moving his bed further away from Danny's. "I don't know," Danny whispered. He felt scared and confused. Nothing made sense anymore. Word spread quickly through the orphan dorms. By morning, none of the other children wanted to sit near Danny in the cafeteria. They whispered behind his back and avoided making eye contact. Danny ate his breakfast alone, feeling more isolated than ever. Lieutenant Commander Kyle Morrison showed up during the morning meal. He was the station's security chief, a tough man with gray hair and a face that rarely smiled. He'd fought in some war before coming to Haven Station, and he looked at everything like it might be a threat. "Danny Pierce," Kyle said, his hand resting on the weapon at his belt. "Come with me." Danny followed Kyle through the station's corridors to the security office. Inside, Ben Graham was already there, along with a woman Danny didn't recognize. She was young, maybe 30, with black hair and glasses that made her look smart and serious. "Sit down, Danny." Ben said gently. This is Dr. Amy Chen. She's a medical officer and she wants to run some tests. What kind of tests? Danny asked nervously. We've been getting reports about unusual electromagnetic activity, Kyle said, his arms crossed. Every incident traces back to you. We need to know what's causing it. Amy pulled out a handheld scanner and waved it around Danny's head. Her eyes widened as she read the results. She ran the scan again, then a third time as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing. This is impossible, Amy said quietly. She showed the scanner to Ben and Kyle. His neural patterns are synchronized with an external frequency, and that frequency matches the energy signature of the sleeper's crown. Kyle stepped back. The dragon ship? You're saying this kid is somehow connected to that alien vessel? I'm saying his brain is communicating with it, Amy replied. Or more accurately, they're communicating with each other. I've never seen anything like this. Ben looked at Danny with concern. Have you felt anything unusual? Any voices in your head, strange dreams? Danny hesitated. He'd been having dreams every night since he received his father's message. Dreams of flying through space, of seeing worlds that didn't exist, of hearing music that made him want to cry, even though he didn't understand the words. But he was afraid to tell them, afraid they'd think he was crazy. Sometimes I dream about being on a ship, Danny admitted. And I hear singing, but it's not like any song I know. It feels old, like it's been there forever. Kyle shook his head. This is a security risk. We need to quarantine him, maybe sedate him until we figure out what's happening. Absolutely not, Ben said firmly. He's a child, not a threat. A child who's connected to an alien warship, Kyle shot back. We don't know what those things are capable of. The Drail could be using him somehow, preparing to attack. The Drail have been gone for 60 years, Amy pointed out. And the scans show the communication is going both ways. Danny isn't being controlled. It's more like a conversation. Helen Carter entered the office, her expression hard. I've been informed of the situation. I want Pierce transferred to a research facility immediately. Whatever is happening to him, we're not equipped to handle it here. No, Ben said. We're not shipping him off like a lab experiment. That's not your decision to make, Helen replied coldly. I run this station. And I will not risk the safety of over 2,000 people because you have a soft spot for orphans. They started arguing, their voices getting louder. Danny felt his head beginning to hurt. The pain grew worse as their argument continued, a sharp pressure building behind his eyes. The lights in the office started to flicker. Stop, Danny said quietly, but nobody heard him. The pressure increased. Danny could hear something else now underneath the arguing voices, a sound like the ocean, vast and deep. Full of meaning he almost understood. The lights flickered faster. Stop, Danny shouted. Every electronic device in the room exploded at once. Computer screens shattered. The lights burst. Amy's medical scanner sparked and died in her hands. The four adults stumbled backward in shock and the office went completely dark, except for the emergency lighting in the corridor outside. Danny's nose started bleeding. He felt dizzy and strange, like he was in two places at once. Part of him was still in the security office, but another part of him was somewhere else. Somewhere vast and ancient and filled with whispers. Ben grabbed Danny's shoulders. It's okay. Just breathe. Whatever you're feeling, try to stay calm. They're waking up, Danny whispered. I can feel them waking up. Amy knelt beside him, her face pale. Who's waking up? The Drail. Danny nodded slowly. Blood dripped from his nose onto his gray uniform. They're scared. They've been asleep for so long and now something's wrong. Something's coming. What's coming? Kyle demanded. I don't know the word in English, Danny said. His voice sounded different now, like there was an echo underneath it. They call them the Devourers. They eat the light of worlds. Helen backed away toward the door. This is beyond anything we can handle. I'm calling for backup from the fleet. Before anyone could respond, every alarm on Haven Station started blaring at once. Red emergency lights flooded the corridors. Over the station's speakers, an automated voice announced, All personnel to alert stations. Unknown vessels detected at the system's edge. Repeat, unknown vessels detected. Kyle rushed to a working terminal in the hallway and pulled up the sensor data. His face went white. There are 6 of them, huge. They're not transmitting any identification signals, and they just destroyed the sensor probe we sent out. Ben looked at Danny. Did you know about this? Did the dragon ship warn you? Danny's eyes were unfocused, staring at something the others couldn't see. They tried to warn everyone. That's why they went to sleep. They were waiting for help to arrive, waiting for someone strong enough to fight beside them. He turned to look directly at Ben. They were waiting for us, for humans. Outside the window, visible through the office doorway, the sleeper's crown suddenly blazed with light. Blue and gold energy coursed through its crystal structure, illuminating patterns that had been dark for decades. All across the station, people stopped and stared as the massive alien ship came alive for the first time in living memory. "Get to the docks," Kyle ordered. "If that thing is powering up, we need to evacuate." But Danny knew the truth. The dragon wasn't a threat. It was preparing for war, and somehow, impossibly, he was part of that preparation. The dreams, the strange connection, his father's message about being special. It all made sense now in a terrible way. The Drail had been waiting for him. A human boy who could hear their call, a bridge between two species that needed each other to survive what was coming. On the Sleeper's crown, dormant crew members began emerging from crystal chambers where they'd slept for 63 years. They were tall and graceful, with skin that shimmered like pearl and eyes that glowed with inner light. They moved through their ship with purpose, checking systems, preparing weapons that humanity had never seen before. And they could all feel the boy's presence in their minds. Young, frightened, brave, the first human to truly hear them in all the years they'd waited. Through Danny, they tasted hope for the first time since entering their long sleep. The war was beginning, and neither humanity nor the Drail would face it alone. The station's emergency sirens wailed through every corridor. People ran in every direction, some heading to evacuation pods, others rushing to their duty stations. Danny sat in the security office with his head in his hands, trying to make sense of the flood of thoughts and feelings that weren't his own. Through the connection, he could feel the Drail waking up all across the star system. Not just on the Sleeper's crown, but on dozens of other dragon ships that orbited nearby planets. Thousands of alien minds coming back to consciousness after decades of sleep. They were confused at first, disoriented, but then they felt him. The human boy who had called out to them in loneliness. They focused on Danny like a beacon in the darkness. "We need to make a decision," Kyle said, his hand on his weapon. "That ship is active now, and we have hostile contacts approaching the system. I say we evacuate everyone to the Defiant and get out of here before this becomes a war zone." The Defiant was the largest human warship in the sector, a massive vessel designed to protect the colonies from pirates and raiders. It was powerful, by human standards, but Danny somehow knew it wouldn't be enough against what was coming. "Running won't help," Danny said quietly. "The Devourers will chase us, they always do. That's what the Drail learned. You can't run from them. You can only fight or die." Helen glared at him. "And how exactly do you know that? How do we know this isn't some kind of trick? Maybe the Drail are the real threat here." "Because I can feel them," Danny said, looking up at her. "I'm inside their minds right now, all of them. They're not evil. They're scared, just like we are. They fought these things before, thousands of years ago. They barely survived. That's why they went to sleep. They were waiting for allies. They were waiting for us." Ben knelt beside Danny's chair. "Can you communicate with them? Ask them what they want?" Danny nodded. It was getting easier now, like learning a new language that his brain already understood. He closed his eyes and reached out through the connection, forming words that weren't quite words, concepts that bridged the gap between human and Drail thought. "What do you need from us?" Danny asked the presence in his mind. The answer came back in waves of meaning. Permission. Alliance. Unity. The Drail would not fight for humanity. They would only fight with humanity, as equals. They had made that mistake before, trying to protect younger species without letting them choose their own fate. Those species had grown weak, dependent. The Drail had sworn never to make that error again. "They want permission," Danny said aloud. "They won't help us unless we agree to fight beside them, not as their servants or their children, as their partners." Kyle laughed bitterly. "Partners? We don't know anything about them. We don't know their weapons, their tactics, their true intentions. You want us to trust aliens we've never even spoken to?" "We're speaking now," Danny said. "Through me. I know it sounds crazy, but I can show you. I can share what I'm feeling with you." Amy stepped forward. "How?" Danny held out his hand. Touch me. I can create a bridge. You'll feel what I feel, see what I see. Just for a moment. Amy hesitated, then took his hand. Her eyes went wide and she gasped. For 30 seconds she stood frozen, her whole body trembling. When Danny let go, she stumbled backward, tears running down her face. "Oh my God," Amy whispered. "There are so many of them, and they're so scared. They lost everything fighting these devourers before. Whole worlds, billions of their people, but they're willing to try again because they believe in us. They think humans have something they don't. Something strong." "What?" Ben asked. "Stubbornness," Amy said with a shaky laugh. "They call it the fire that refuses to die. They've watched us for decades, seen how we survive disasters, rebuild after wars, refuse to give up even when logic says we should. They think that's the missing piece, their wisdom combined with our determination." Helen crossed her arms. "This is insane. We're talking about trusting our survival to aliens based on the visions of a 12-year-old orphan. Do we have a better option?" Ben asked. "Kyle, what are our chances against those 6 incoming ships?" Kyle pulled up the tactical data on his portable screen. His expression grew darker as he read. "Based on what we saw them do to our probe, not good. Their weapons are more advanced than anything in our fleet. The Defiant can hold them off for a while, maybe destroy 1 or 2. But 6 against 1? We lose." "Then we need the Drail," Ben said firmly. "The decision isn't ours to make," Helen pointed out. "Admiral Patterson commands the sector fleet. He needs to authorize any alliance." Kyle nodded. "I'll contact the Defiant, but we're wasting time arguing. Those hostile ships will be in weapons range within 4 hours." He opened a communication channel to the warship. Captain Lisa Martinez appeared on the screen, her dark hair pulled back tight, her uniform crisp despite the emergency. Behind her, the Defiant's bridge was a scene of controlled chaos as crew members rushed to prepare for battle. "Haven Station, this is Captain Martinez. We're detecting massive energy spikes from the alien vessels in orbit. Are you under attack?" "Not yet," Kyle replied. "But we have a situation that requires the Admiral's immediate attention. We may have a way to contact the Drail." Lisa's eyes widened. "The Drail have been silent for 60 years. How?" "It's complicated. We have a civilian here, a child, who appears to have some kind of neural connection to their ships. He claims they're willing to help us fight the incoming hostiles, but they need permission first. Some kind of formal alliance." Lisa was quiet for a moment, processing this information. "Stand by. I'm patching you through to Admiral Patterson." The screen switched to show an older man with gray hair and a weathered face. Admiral Chris Patterson had commanded the sector fleet for 20 years. He'd seen wars, disasters, and miracles. But the expression on his face suggested this was beyond anything in his experience. "Explain," the Admiral said simply. Danny stepped in front of the camera. His nose was still bleeding a little, and he looked exhausted, but he spoke clearly. "Sir, my name is Danny Pierce. The Drail have been trying to contact humanity for weeks, but I'm the only one who can hear them. They want to help us fight the ships that are coming, but they need humanity to agree to an alliance first. They won't make us subordinate to them. They want us as equals." "Why should I believe you?" Patterson asked. "Because I can prove it," Danny said. He closed his eyes and reached out through the connection to the sleeper's crown. "Show them." The dragon ship's lights pulsed in a specific pattern. 3 short bursts, 3 long, 3 short. The universal distress signal. Then the lights spelled out words in English, letters 50 feet tall written across the crystal hull. "We hear you. We stand with you. If you stand with us." Everyone watching the screens fell silent. All over Haven Station and aboard the Defiant, people stared at the message written in light on the ancient alien vessel. "They can understand us?" Patterson asked quietly. "They've been listening for decades," Danny explained. "Learning our languages, studying our culture. They know everything about us. They just couldn't speak to us until now, until I became the bridge." Amy stepped up beside Danny. "Admiral, I'm Dr. Amy Chen, medical officer. I've examined this boy. The neural connection is real. It's not a trick or a delusion. He's genuinely linked to the Drail consciousness. And I've experienced it myself through him. They're telling the truth. They want to help. What do they want in return? Patterson asked, ever the strategist. Danny listened to the whispers in his mind. Nothing. Just friendship. Just the chance to fight beside others instead of fighting alone. They're tired of being alone. The Admiral looked off screen, probably at his tactical displays showing the approaching enemy. When he looked back, his face was grim. We have 3 hours before those hostile ships reach firing range. The Defiant alone can't stop them. Every simulation we've run ends in our destruction. He paused. But if I agree to this alliance, I'm committing humanity to a partnership with aliens we barely understand. If this goes wrong, if the Drail betray us, the consequences will be catastrophic. And if you don't agree, Danny said softly, the Devourers will destroy us all. They've done it to hundreds of worlds. The Drail have the memories. I can see them. Planets turned to dust, civilizations erased like they never existed. That's what's coming, sir, and we can't stop it alone. Patterson closed his eyes for a long moment. When he opened them, his decision was made. Very well. On behalf of the human presence in this sector, I accept the Drail Alliance. Tell them we'll fight together. As equals. He looked directly at Danny. Can you translate that to them? Danny nodded. He didn't need to translate. The Drail had heard every word through his ears. Already he could feel their response. A wave of relief and determination that swept through the connection like a tide. Across the system, dragon ships blazed with light as their crews prepared for war. On the Sleeper's crown, the Drail commander, a being whose name translated roughly as Guardian of the Lost Hope, sent a single message through Danny to all of humanity. Danny spoke the words aloud, his voice carrying the weight of an ancient civilization. We accept. We stand together. The fire that refuses to die will meet the light that never fades. Let the Devourers come. They will find us ready. The alliance was formed. The war was about to begin, and Danny Pierce. The next 3 hours passed in a blur of activity that Danny experienced from a dozen different perspectives at once. Through his connection to the Drail, he could feel their ships coming fully online throughout the system. But there was a problem. A serious one that made his stomach twist with worry. They don't have enough power, Danny said suddenly, interrupting a planning meeting between Admiral Patterson and the Drail commander. He was standing in Haven Station's main conference room, with Ben and Amy on either side of him for support. Kyle stood guard at the door, still suspicious but willing to help. On the screen, Patterson watched from the Defiance bridge while holographic displays showed the Drail commander, a tall figure with glowing silver eyes and skin that seemed to shift like moonlight on water. Explain, Patterson said. Danny struggled to put the complex information into simple words. Their ships have been asleep for too long. The power crystals that run everything have degraded. They can move, they can fight, but not at full strength. Maybe 60% of what they should be capable of. Against the Devourers, that might not be enough. The Drail commander spoke, and Danny translated. The alien's actual voice was like music, rising and falling in patterns that hurt to hear. Directly, but through Danny's mind, the meaning came through clearly. Our technology requires immense energy to operate. Our weapons can destroy the Devourers, but only if we can power them properly. In our current state, we are wounded eagles fighting wolves. What do you need? Patterson asked. Fusion cores, Danny said, the answer flowing through the connection. Your human ships use nuclear fusion for power. It's crude compared to Drail crystal technology, but it's raw and strong. If we can combine human fusion with Drail crystals, we might be able to boost their power output. A new voice joined the conversation. That's theoretically possible. Captain Lisa Martinez stepped into view on the screen. We'd need engineers who understand both technologies, and we'd need to work fast. I can help with that, said another voice. A woman pushed into the conference room, breathless from running. She was young, maybe 25. with oil stains on her uniform and bright, intelligent eyes. Kate Sullivan, Chief Engineer from Processing Station Delta. I was on Haven for a supply run when this all started. I've studied the Drail ships, written 3 papers on their power systems. Nobody read them because everyone thought the dragons were dead, but I know their technology better than anyone. Ben smiled. Looks like we have our expert. Can you really make this work? Kyle asked Kate. Maybe. Probably. I'll need help from both sides. Kate looked at the screen showing the Drail commander. And I'll need to go aboard one of your ships. I can't retrofit your power systems from here. The Drail commander's expression was hard to read, but Danny felt approval through the connection. We will send a shuttle to Haven Station. The human engineer and the boy will come to the Sleeper's Crown. We must work together if this is to succeed. The boy? Helen, who had been silent until now, stood up sharply. Absolutely not. Danny stays here where it's safe. He's not safe anywhere, Amy pointed out. If the Devourers get through, Haven Station is just as vulnerable as anywhere else. And Danny is the only one who can communicate perfectly between our species. He needs to be there. She's right, Ben said. I don't like it either, but we need him. Danny felt fear twist in his gut, but he also felt something else. Purpose. For the first time in 2 years, since his parents died, he felt like he mattered. Like he was meant for something bigger than fixing pipes and counting down days until adulthood. I'll go, Danny said. His voice was quiet but firm. 20 minutes later, Danny stood in Haven Station's main docking bay, watching a Drail shuttle approach. The craft was beautiful, all curves and crystal, moving through space without any visible thrusters. It landed silently, and a door opened like a flower blooming. 3 Drail stepped out. They were taller than humans, maybe 7 feet on average, and they moved with a grace that seemed almost like dancing. Their skin really did shimmer, changing colors slightly in the light. They wore clothing that looked like it was made from liquid metal, form-fitting but clearly functional. The lead Drail looked at Danny, and their eyes met. Through the connection, Danny felt recognition, gratitude, and something like affection. This was one of the first Drail to wake up when Danny's voice reached through the dark. They'd been listening to him talk to the empty ship for weeks. The Drail spoke, their voice like wind chimes. Danny understood perfectly, though Ben and Kate, who stood beside him, looked confused. He says his name is difficult to translate, Danny explained, but it means something like light that returns after storm. He's the chief of engineering on the Sleeper's Crown. He says thank you for waking them up. Kate stared in wonder. This is incredible. I have so many questions. Light After Storm tilted his head and Danny laughed at the thought the engineer shared with him. He says you'll have plenty of time to ask questions while you work. Right now, we need to move. The shuttle ride to the Sleeper's Crown took only minutes, but to Danny, it felt like entering a dream. The interior of the Drail craft was unlike anything he'd ever experienced. The walls weren't walls, but seemed to shift and flow, showing views of space or displaying information in colors that Danny's eyes almost couldn't process. When they docked with the dragon ship, Danny stepped into a world of crystal and light. Everything on the Sleeper's Crown seemed to be alive in some way. The corridors pulsed with gentle illumination. The air tasted like honey and lightning. Drail crew members moved through the ship, some of them nodding to Danny as he passed, recognizing him through the shared connection. This is amazing, Kate whispered, her engineer's eyes taking in every detail. They were led to the heart of the ship, a massive chamber that housed the main power crystal. It was huge, easily 30 feet tall, floating in the center of the room without any visible support. But Danny could see through the Drail's knowledge that it was damaged, fractured in places, glowing weakly when it should have blazed like a star. Kate pulled out her scanning equipment and began taking readings. Okay, I see the problem. The crystal structure has degraded at the molecular level. You need a massive energy input to repair and recharge it, more than your backups can provide. Light After Storm brought up holographic displays showing the ship's power systems. Kate studied them for a long moment, then pulled up specs for human fusion cores on her datapad. Her fingers moved quickly across the screen, running calculations. It could work, she said finally. If we route 3 of the Defiant's backup fusion cores into your crystal matrix, we might generate enough power to bring this ship to full strength. But the energy conversion would be tricky. One wrong calculation and we could blow up both ships. Then we must not calculate wrong, Light After Storm said through Danny's translation. For the next 2 hours, Kate and the Drail engineers worked together. Danny served as translator, but he also found himself understanding the technical concepts flowing through the connection. The Drail knowledge was becoming part of him, and his human perspective was helping them see solutions they'd missed. Wait, Danny said suddenly. What if we don't try to convert the energy? What if we use the fusion cores to create a buffer field and let the crystal draw from that field naturally? Like a filter instead of a direct connection. Kate and Light After Storm both stopped and looked at him. Then they looked at each other, and even though they couldn't directly communicate, they both understood the idea at the same time. That might actually work, Kate said, excitement in her voice. The Drail engineer's eyes glowed brighter, which Danny had learned meant pleasure or approval. Through the connection, Danny felt the alien's thought. The boy thinks like both species at once. He is the bridge in truth, not just in name. With the new approach, the work went faster. Captain Martinez authorized the transfer of 3 fusion cores from the Defiant. Human technicians worked alongside Drail engineers, communicating through hand signals, shared diagrams, and Danny's constant translation. Despite the language barrier, despite the differences in technology and culture, they found a rhythm. Danny watched them work and felt hope growing in his chest. This was what the Drail had been waiting for. Not just military allies, but partners who could teach them new things, show them new approaches. Humanity's creativity combined with Drail wisdom. Finally, after hours of tense work, Kate stepped back from the main console. That's it. The connections are in place. Now we just need to activate the fusion cores and hope the crystal doesn't reject the energy. Light After Storm placed his hand on a control panel. He looked at Kate, then at Danny. Together? Kate smiled and put her hand beside his. Together. Danny placed his hand on the panel too. Through the connection, he could feel every Drail on the ship holding their breath. On Haven Station and aboard the Defiant, humans waited nervously. The 3 of them activated the system simultaneously. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the crystal began to glow, brighter and brighter. The cracks in its structure started to seal, filling with light. Energy surged through the ship, and Danny felt the Sleeper's crown come fully alive for the first time in 63 years. Weapons charged, shields powered up. The great vessel sang with renewed strength. The Devourers arrived at dawn, at least by Haven Station's artificial day cycle. Danny stood in the observation chamber of the Sleeper's crown, watching through crystal walls as 6 massive shapes emerged from the darkness between stars. They were nothing like human ships or even Drail vessels. The Devourers looked organic, like enormous creatures made of shadow and hunger. Their hulls seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, creating holes in space where they existed. Writhing tendrils extended from their bodies, reaching out as if tasting the solar wind. Just looking at them made Danny feel cold and small. They are worse than the memories showed, Light After Storm said beside him, his usual calm voice carrying a tremor of fear. They have grown stronger since we last fought them. Through the connection, Danny felt the terror rippling through the Drail crews. These beings had fought the Devourers before, had watched whole fleets destroyed, had barely escaped with their lives. Now they faced that nightmare again, and even with human allies, the odds seemed impossible. Danny closed his eyes and reached out through the connection to every Drail and every human in the fleet. He didn't know if he could touch the human minds the same way, but he had to try. He thought of his parents, of the way they'd never given up even when the mining on New Terra got dangerous. He thought of the other orphans on Haven Station, kids who'd lost everything but still got up every morning and tried to build something better. Listen to me, Danny said, his voice carrying across 100 ships through communication channels and mental links simultaneously. I know you're scared. I'm scared too. But the Drail chose to wake up because they believed in us. They believed humans have something special, something they call the fire that refuses to die. He opened his eyes and looked at the approaching Devourers. My parents died when I was 10. I thought I'd never stop hurting. I thought I'd be alone forever. But then I found all of you. Both species. and I learned that being human means you don't give up, even when everything says you should. That's what we do. We lose, we hurt, we get knocked down, and then we get back up and we keep fighting. On the Defiance Bridge, Captain Lisa Martinez listened to the boy's words and felt something ignite in her chest. Around her, crew members who'd been tense and afraid suddenly stood straighter. In the docking bay, Kyle Morrison checked his weapon and allowed himself a grim smile. On Haven Station, Ben and Amy held hands and watched the screens, believing somehow that this insane alliance might actually work. Admiral Patterson's voice cut through the channel. "All human vessels, this is the Admiral. We're about to make history today. We're going to show these things that humanity doesn't break. We fight together with our Drail brothers and sisters, and we give these devourers something they haven't faced before. We give them hell." He paused. "All ships engage." The battle began. The Defiant and the other human warships opened fire first, their missiles and railguns creating streams of light across the dark. The Devourer's shields absorbed most of the damage, but the assault created openings. Drail ships swept in behind the human attack, their crystal weapons firing beams of concentrated energy that burned through shadow hulls like hot knives through ice. But the Devourers fought back with terrible efficiency. Their tendril weapons reached across vast distances, wrapping around human ships and crushing them like tin cans. Dark energy beams lanced out, punching holes through shields and armor. Within minutes, 3 human destroyers were gone, blown apart in silent explosions. Danny felt each death like a knife to his heart. He could feel the Drail falling too, their minds winking out in the connection as their ships took fatal damage. The pain threatened to overwhelm him, but Light After Storm placed a hand on his shoulder. "Stay focused," the Drail engineer said. "We need you. Show us how humans fight. Show us that fire." Danny gritted his teeth and forced himself to watch the battle, to analyze it through both human tactical thinking and Drail strategic awareness. That's when he saw it. The pattern. "They're feeding," Danny said suddenly. "Every time we shoot them, they get stronger. They're absorbing the energy from our weapons." Kate, who'd stayed on the Sleeper's Crown to monitor the power systems, pulled up her sensor data. "He's right. The more we hit them, the bigger their energy signatures get. We're literally making them stronger by fighting them." Danny opened the fleet-wide channel. "All ships change tactics. Human vessels switch to kinetic weapons only. Missiles and railguns, nothing that uses pure energy. Drail ships, use your disruptor beams instead of your main cannons." "Disruptors are weaker," Light After Storm protested. "They will not destroy the enemy quickly." "But they won't feed them either," Danny countered. "We have to fight smarter, not harder." Admiral Patterson made the call. "All vessels," you heard him. "Switch to kinetic and disruptor weapons. Coordinate your attacks. Human ships create openings, Drail ships exploit them." The fleet adapted. Human destroyers hammered the Devourers with solid shot, their railguns firing chunks of metal at incredible speeds. The impacts didn't feed the enemy's shields. When gaps opened in the shadow halls, Drail ships swept in with their disruptor beams, weapons designed to break apart molecular bonds rather than burn with energy. Slowly, the tide began to turn. One of the smaller Devourer vessels started to break apart under the sustained assault. But Danny could feel the battle was far from over. The largest Devourer ship, easily twice the size of the others, hung back from the fighting. Through the Drail memories, he recognized it. The Hive ship. The controller. "That's their leader," Danny said, pointing at the massive vessel. "If we destroy that, the others lose coordination. How do we get to it?" Lisa asked over the channel. "It's surrounded by the other 5. Danny felt the answer flow through the Drail connection. An old memory, a desperate tactic from the ancient war. His eyes widened with horror and admiration. "The Sleeper's Crown has to ram it," Danny whispered. "Fly straight through the enemy lines and crash into the Hive ship's core. Then detonate the power crystal from inside." Light After Storm's face showed no surprise. He'd known this might be necessary. "It is the only way. The explosion will be large enough to destroy the Hive ship and cripple the others." "But you'll die," Kate said, her voice breaking. "The whole crew." "We have died before in the memories," the Drail engineer said calmly. "We have died 1,000 times across 1,000 years. One more death to save 2 species? That is a worthy end." "No," Danny said firmly. "There has to be another way." But through the connection, he could feel the Drail crew accepting their fate. They were already preparing, already saying goodbye to each other in the way their species did, sharing final thoughts and memories. Lisa's voice cut through the channel. If the Sleeper's Crown makes that run, the Defiant will go with them. We'll provide cover fire and shields. Captain, that's suicide, one of her officers protested. Maybe, Lisa agreed. But that's the job. Danny, can your Drail friends get some of their crew off the ship before the final run? There's not enough time, Danny said. And most of them won't leave anyway. They've been waiting 60 years to fight this battle. They won't run at the end. He looked at Light After Storm, then at Kate. An idea was forming, crazy and desperate, but maybe possible. What if we don't detonate the crystal? What if we dump all the power into the forward shields and plow through at maximum speed? The impact alone might be enough. Kate ran quick calculations on her pad. Maybe. If we redirect every system, life support, weapons, everything into the shields and engines, you'd hit like a meteor traveling at near light speed. The impact would be catastrophic. But survivable? Danny asked. For some, maybe. If the ship's crystal structure can absorb the shock. Kate looked at Light After Storm. It's a long shot. The Drail engineer's eyes glowed brighter. Then we take the shot. Prepare the ship. All power to shields and engines. Throughout the Sleeper's Crown, the crew worked with desperate speed. Systems shut down one by one, all their energy feeding into the shield generators and the main drive. The ship's lights dimmed except for the fierce glow of the power crystal. Danny stayed connected to every mind on the vessel, coordinating movements, sharing strength, keeping hope alive. He could feel Kate frantically rerouting power conduits. He could feel Light After Storm's steady hands on the controls. He could feel the Drail crew singing their ancient battle songs, ready to die but hoping to live. On the Defiant, Lisa ordered her ship to maximum speed. All remaining vessels concentrate fire on those 5 support ships. Give the Crown a path through. The human and Drail fleet threw everything they had at the Devourers, creating a corridor of destruction. The Sleeper's Crown surged forward, its shields blazing like a second sun. The Defiant flew beside it, missiles and railguns clearing the way. Devourer tendrils reached out, trying to stop them. Some connected, tearing at shields and hull. Danny felt Drail crew members die as sections of the ship decompressed. But the Crown kept moving, kept accelerating, became a crystal arrow aimed at the heart of darkness. The Hive ship realized the danger too late. It tried to move, but something that massive couldn't turn quickly. The Sleeper's Crown, glowing with every bit of power 2 species could generate, struck the Devourer vessel at the weak point where its organic hull met its energy core.